Hi ladies, it's Carol here. I'm just going to try and do my first tutorial, and that's because people have been asking me about watercolours. Now, I've only been watercolouring myself for about a week, but I do enjoy it. So here goes. I'll show you what I do. I usually use the watercolour pencils. I don't know what you ladies use, but I find these to be quite easy. So we'll start with the hair. I try to do the darker of the colour on the edges, making sure that I go around all of the edges with a nice layer of colour. It's so much easier when you do it this way, I find. I'm not very good at mixing watercolours to make like a watercolour wash, but I have some ordinary watercolours and I'm going to have a go with those this week, so I'll see how I go on. Once you've got all your edges done, and maybe one or two little highlights randomly, then I'll change colour and go for a different tone, if you like. Maybe let me see, a different brown. It doesn't stand out too much, but once you put your water on, it tends to mix together and give you a really nice shade. So, having said that, I then use these. I don't know what you call them over there in the States, but these are just aqua flow brushes, they're called, over here. Generally come in packs of 3. And I find them very easy to use. You just fill this end with water, put your brush top on, give it a little squeeze, which I do onto my mat to get the water going, and then working in from the edge and using small circular movements. This is how I tend to blend the two colours together that I've put down. Sometimes I leave quite a bit of white in the middle, and other times I just let it merge together. Depends what effect I'm trying to achieve. I hope you can see how this is sort of, the two shades of brown are blending together a little bit, and it just gives a nice overall look. Okay, and then I'll go on to the fringe. Does make me chuckle when I'm talking to some of you girls, because there's a lot of words that are so different here to what they are over in the States. Are these called bangs? Your fringe called bangs? But we usually get there in the end and understand what we each other are meaning. Isabel and I do that quite a lot. You can go over a little bit more even when your paper's wet. Oh, that's another thing I meant to say, is using proper watercolour paper makes all the difference. I've tried it on so many different types of card and paper, and you don't seem to get such a good effect on anything if it isn't the watercolour paper. Obviously that's what it's made for, so. And that is the start of the hair. I hope you can see that alright. Now sometimes I colour the hair and the skin, and then I'll paper piece the dress, but today I'm going to try to colour the whole dress, so we'll see how that goes. Right, so for the dress, to give you a bit of depth and movement, I would go quite heavily across the waistband. You don't have to be too precise, that's another good thing about using the pencils. Down the edges, so you're putting on quite a bit of colour. And then where the folds of the fabric are. Don't forget, you can always go back and put a little bit more colour on if you want to. And then again, above the waist, I would go quite heavy with the colour. To me, that would be where the fabric goes in more, over the tummy and where the chest is, you know, around where the belt area is. So that would give it a little bit more depth there. And then you can put a little bit lighter colour if you want. Go a little bit easier with it. Sometimes what you need to remember is, if you're going to have a mark where the light is shining, you have to pick that area. So if your light is going to be shining there, then you would leave bits of white. For instance, you would do around the edges, but then you would leave a white area, and that would be your where the light's shining on. And then you would have to carry that on further down, so you would have light shining on there and colour the rest of that in. I hope that's easy enough for you to understand. I'm not very good at explaining things. That would then follow on down to the next part. So you need to do again your folds of your fabric, and I always do around the edges. Just sort of brings it all in together. And then you'll leave your area of light again. It's up to yourself how heavy or lightly you put on your colour. I'm going to use a slightly wider brush now because I've got a bigger area to fill. And I tend to put, I don't know if you can see, some water on my mat, because then I can just keep dipping my brush in if it gets a bit dry. So we're going to go down the edges, small circular movements. If you can see, it picks up the colour and brings it inwards, so that it's slightly dark around the edges, but then you've got a lighter in the middle, like this area, and it gives it some depth. Small circular movements again, and you've got your light area that you've put colour on. And again, and I just carry on doing this all the way around the dress. I hope it shows up on there okay. It tends to give you a bit of darkened shade without you trying too hard, which is what I like. Anything that's easy is good. Keep doing your circular movements and bringing your colour into the middle. Don't forget now to leave this area, this white area, so you're bringing your colour in but avoiding that small part there. And then down here, the same thing. I really enjoy doing this, I find it very relaxing. And sometimes just a bit different to paper piecing. Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoy, but I like trying different things so that I don't get fed up. Wouldn't like to get bored with us dollies, would we? Small circular movements still. I suppose a lot of this depends on where you put your colour, but you've just got to experiment and then see how you like it. And lastly, on the dress, I'll do the top. Again, circular movements. Like I say, by no means am I an expert, I just enjoy doing it. And that's the whole point, isn't it? Just to have fun and make our dollies look as pretty as we can. That now is some way to showing you the different tones that you can get. That's just with one pencil. The skin tones sometimes can be a bit more difficult. So let me see if I can find some that I think will be nice skin tones. I tend to use like pinks and beiges. But if I'm honest, there's not, in the pencils I've got, there's not a great deal that are that good for skin tones. I might have to invest in some more. Just excuse me 1 second while I sharpen these. They might do. Okay. This one's like a pinky colour. So this one's slightly darker. So again, I'll do round the edges first with that one. Bearing in mind, these are probably not the best colours to use for the skin tones, but if you've got the Julie Nutting ones, skin tones, you've cracked it, you're well away with those. There are other ones that you can get that are skin tones. I do tend to use a lot of alcohol markers as well, because I do enjoy colouring with those. Makes me feel like I'm 5 years old again. So if you can see that, I've gone sort of around the edges, but I've left plenty of white on these areas. And I'm going to do the same again with the legs. You'd always have it a bit darker under where the skirt is, shadowing. And then I tend to go around the edges with a little bit more at the bottom of the feet. Up the other side. And then I always go in the middle and just add a little bit of colour going up and down there in the middle part. It just tends to give the legs a bit of more of a rounded shape, if you know what I mean, instead of looking flat. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish there. So then we've got the lighter one. So I'll go a little bit lighter in the middle and in these parts, which it won't look too full, if you know what I mean, because there's two shades. I don't want the legs to look white, but I don't want them to look too dark either. Okay, and then away we go again with our water brush. I'm doing the small strokes away from the hair because that's where the darker part of the colour is, in between the fringe. And then my circles again, just to give it does blend better with the small circles, I find. Making sure that you keep your brush plenty wet, which is fine on this water paper. On some of the other papers, if you get too much water on, it tends to rub up into little bobbles, which is no good. We need this paper to stay as flat as possible, really. And like I say, if you're not completely happy, you can always go back and do a little bit more. Sometimes if you think you might have a little bit too much colour on, if you keep a spare piece of your card, you can put a little bit extra water on your brush, run it over the top of where you think you've got too much colour, and then wipe it off so that it's not too dark. I can see it's starting to take shape now. The arms do look more rounded rather than flat. I hope you can see that okay. I'll just show you how far we've got. Maybe need a little bit more colour on her face, but I'll do that when I've done this part. So now onto the legs. I'm going to, again, from the dark part, coming inwards, always coming inwards to bring the lighter into the middle. The main thing is to play and have fun. We're going to make many mistakes, we all do, but that's part of the learning curve, isn't it? And you know, just enjoy what you're doing. One of the reasons I decided to do a video tutorial is because Isabel is always telling me that she loves my Yorkshire accent. And I'm supposed to say, "Good afternoon, my lady. Would you like a cup of tea?" let's see what she says to that. Can you see there that I didn't feel like I had enough contrast where where one leg is overlapping the other, so I've just put a little bit more colour on, a little bit darker colour. And just keep going round in circles until you get what you want. Okay, so on a face it still seems very pale right in the middle. So what I'm going to do with that one is I'm going to get a nice pink, a nice pale pink, if I can find one. That looks quite pale. And just give her some cheeks if I can. Give her face a little bit more definition then. Again, a little bit of water. And last but not least, the headband. Okay, so when I'm colouring the headband, I tend to go dark in the corners, part way across, both sides. And then, where's that nice pink gone? It just had. Oops. A little bit of the pink, as it would get lighter. And a gap for the light. And then once again, a little bit of water and just blend it together, bringing all your colours. And there she is. I hope you like her. I hope it hasn't been too hard to follow the way that I colour. And don't forget, ladies, it's the first tutorial I've ever done. So be kind. Thank you. Bye.